On my wedding day, I wore a dress I didn't choose, carried flowers I didn't want, and married a man I'd never spoken to. I was 19 years old. The church was full of people who had whispered about me my whole life. The pews held neighbors who crossed the street when they saw me coming, women who clicked their tongues, men who stared too long, and standing at the altar, watching me with eyes that could cut glass. My mother, she wasn't crying. Mothers cry at weddings. Mine was smiling, because she had finally found a way to get rid of me. The man waiting at the altar was Dante Ferrara, the most feared name in 3 provinces, a man who had built his empire on bones and broken promises, and in less than an hour, I would belong to him. Or so everyone thought, because what happened next, no one expected. Not the guests, not my mother, not even me. This is the story of how a monster gave me something no one else ever had. My freedom. The lace was too tight. I couldn't breathe properly, but I had stopped complaining about that hours ago. My mother had made it clear that my comfort was not a priority. Nothing about me had ever been a priority. The church of San Michele was 300 years old. Its stone walls had witnessed countless weddings, countless vows, countless lies, told before God. Today, it would witness one more. I stood in the small room behind the altar, staring at my reflection in a mirror that was older than my grandmother. The dress was beautiful. I could admit that objectively. White silk that cascaded like water. Delicate embroidery that must have taken someone months to complete. A veil so fine, it looked like morning mist. It was a dress made for a woman who was loved. I was not that woman. Stop fidgeting. My mother's voice cut through the silence like a blade. She stood by the window, her black dress absorbing the light that tried to reach her. She always wore black. Mourning, she said, though my father wasn't dead. Just gone. Mourning the life she should have had. Mourning the youth that had slipped away while she raised a daughter she never wanted. A daughter who looked too much like the man who had abandoned them both. The dress is tight, I said. Then don't breathe so much. I watched her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were sharp today, which meant she hadn't started drinking yet. That would come later, at the reception, when she could hide it behind champagne flutes and festive toasts. By tonight, she would be the version of herself I had learned to fear, loose-tongued and cruel, her resentments flowing as freely as the alcohol. You should be grateful, she said, not looking at me. Do you know how many girls would kill to be in your position? Marrying a stranger? Marrying Dante Ferrara. She finally turned, and I saw something in her eyes that might have been envy. Do you have any idea what he's worth? What this marriage means for us? For us, as if there had ever been an us. As if she hadn't spent my entire life reminding me that I was a burden, a reminder, a mistake with my father's eyes and my father's stubborn silence. I don't even know him, I said quietly. You don't need to know him. You need to obey him. She crossed the room in 3 sharp steps and grabbed my chin, forcing me to meet her gaze. Listen to me carefully. This is your one chance. Your only chance. Men like Dante Ferrara don't marry girls like you. Poor, nobody, nothing. He chose you, God knows why. And you will not embarrass me. You will smile. You will say your vows. You will be a good wife. And if you're smart, if you're smarter than you've ever been in your miserable little life, you will make him happy. Because if this falls apart, if you ruin this for me... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The bruise on my ribs from last week had finally faded. I didn't want a new one. I understand, I whispered. Good. She released me and stepped back, smoothing her dress with practiced hands. Now, fix your face. You look like you're going to a funeral. Maybe I am, I thought, but didn't say. The door opened, and one of the church women peeked in. It's time. My mother smiled, the public smile, the one that made people think she was charming and long-suffering, a poor widow raising her difficult daughter alone. We're ready. She wasn't a widow. My father was alive somewhere, probably with a new family, probably not thinking about us at all, but widow sounded better than abandoned. And my mother had always been careful about appearances. The walk down the aisle was the longest of my life. The church was full. I recognized most of the faces. The baker who always charged us extra, the pharmacist who looked at me with pity when I bought concealer in bulk, the old women who whispered behind their hands whenever I passed. They had come not for celebration, but for spectacle. To see the strange girl, who had somehow caught the attention of the most dangerous man in the region. And there he was. Dante Ferrara stood at the altar, like he was carved from the same stone as the church. Tall, dark, still in a way that felt unnatural. He was older than me, late 30s I'd been told, with the kind of face that might have been handsome if it ever showed emotion. A scar crossed his left eyebrow, thin and white, the only imperfection in an otherwise perfect mask. Our eyes met. I waited for something, fear, maybe, or the predatory assessment I'd expected. Instead, I found nothing. His gaze was neutral, observing, like I was a problem to be solved rather than a prize to be claimed. Somehow that was worse. The ceremony passed in a blur. The priest's words washed over me without meaning. I heard myself say, "I do," as if from a great distance. Dante's voice was low and controlled when he said the same, revealing nothing. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, I braced myself. This was the moment. The kiss, the claiming. I had heard stories about men like him, about what they did to their wives, how they established dominance from the very first moment. I had prepared myself for roughness, for possession, for the public demonstration of power that everyone expected. Dante turned to me. His hand rose. I forced myself not to flinch. His fingers brushed my chin, barely a touch, feather light. He tilted my face up gently and looked into my eyes for a long moment. Then he inclined his head in something that was almost a bow and stepped back. No kiss. The silence in the church was deafening. I saw my mother's face twist in confusion, saw the guests exchange glances. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. This wasn't the display of ownership everyone had anticipated. "Before we leave this church," Dante said, his voice carrying easily through the stone chamber, "there is something I must give my wife." He gestured, and a man I hadn't noticed, older, distinguished, carrying a leather briefcase, stepped forward. He opened the case and extracted a document which he handed to Dante. Dante held it up so I could see. Heavy paper, official seals, legal language I couldn't fully parse. "This," he said, "is a Declaration of Independence. It has been witnessed, notarized, and filed with 3 separate legal authorities." He pressed it into my hands. "It guarantees your freedom. You may leave this marriage at any time for any reason with no consequences. You owe me nothing, not your presence, not your obedience, not your body. You are not my property. You never will be." I stared at the paper. The words swam before my eyes. "I don't understand," I whispered. "You will." He turned to the congregation. "Let everyone here witness. My wife is free. She has been free since the moment she said, 'I do.' If she stays, it will be her choice. If she leaves, that will also be her choice. And anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to me." He offered me his arm. Numbly, I took it. We walked back down the aisle together, past the shocked faces, past my mother's fury, barely contained behind her social mask, past all the whispers that had followed me my whole life. And for the first time, I wasn't sure what any of it meant. I chose the car. I don't know why. Maybe because I had nowhere else to go. Maybe because the alternative was returning to my mother's house, to the empty bottles and the heavy silences and the words that cut deeper than any blade. Maybe because some small, hungry part of me wanted to understand what kind of man gives someone their freedom on the day he's supposed to claim them. The drive took 40 minutes. The car was sleek and black and completely silent, gliding through countryside I'd never seen, despite living in the region my whole life. We passed vineyards and olive groves, and eventually turned onto a private road that wound up into the hills. The real house, though house seemed too small a word, appeared gradually through the trees. I had expected something fortress-like, stone walls, armed guards, the kind of place where powerful men did powerful things away from prying eyes. Instead, I found light. The villa was old, yes, but it had been renovated with care. Large windows let in the afternoon sun. There were flowers in terracotta pots by the entrance, and the garden had the pleasant disorder of a place that was lived in, not just displayed. It looked like a home. An older man waited at the front door. He had the kind face of someone who had seen too much and chosen kindness anyway. "Mrs. Ferrara," he said, and the name hit me like a wave. Mrs. Ferrara. That was me now. My My name is Enzo. I manage the household. If you need anything at all, you have only to ask. Where is he? Mr. Ferrara has business matters to attend to. He will return this evening, but he asked me to tell you that you have no obligation to wait for him. Your room is prepared. It is yours alone. I stared at him. My room? Yes, ma'am. It has a lock from the inside. The words didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. Please, Enzo said gently, allow me to show you. He led me through hallways filled with natural light, past a library that seemed to contain more books than I could read in a lifetime, past a kitchen that smelled of fresh bread and herbs. Everything was warm, comfortable, nothing like the cold, controlled environment I had imagined. The room he showed me to was beautiful. A large bed with white linens that looked like clouds, a balcony overlooking the vineyards, a private bathroom with a tub big enough to disappear into, and on the vanity, a set of keys. These are yours, Enzo explained. For this room, the library, the back garden, and the garage where the cars are kept. You may go anywhere you wish, whenever you wish. The guards on the property have been instructed to follow your orders, as they would. Follow mine or Mr. Ferrara's. Follow my orders. If you ask them to take you somewhere, they will take you. If you ask them to leave you alone, they will leave. If you ask them to deny someone entry, he paused meaningfully. That person will not enter, no matter who they are. Anyone? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Anyone. Enzo retired after showing me where to find food if I was hungry, how to use the intercom system if I needed help, how to reach the gardens if I wanted to walk. He left me alone with a promise that dinner would be ready whenever I wanted, not when someone else decided. I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in years, I cried. The first days were strange. I kept waiting for the trap to reveal itself, for Dante to appear at my door, demanding what was rightfully his, for the walls to close in, for the freedom to be exposed as an illusion, but he kept his distance. I saw him sometimes in the mornings, taking coffee on the terrace with papers spread before him. He would incline his head in greeting when he noticed me, but he never approached unless I approached first. He never asked where I was going or what I was doing. He never made demands. One night I couldn't sleep. I wandered down to the library and found him there, reading by the fire. I can't sleep, I said, as if I needed to justify my presence. Neither can I. He stood. Do you want me to leave? No. It was the first time I asked him to stay. We read in silence for hours. He didn't try to make conversation. He didn't try to move closer. He simply existed in the same space as me, a presence that demanded nothing. When I finally went to bed, he stayed in the library. His room, I discovered later, was on the opposite end of the house. The food appeared without my asking, but it was always something I liked. I realized that Enzo had been observing what I ate with enthusiasm and adjusting the menus. Accordingly, no one forced me to eat at specific times. No one commented on how much or how little I consumed. The guards treated me with a respect that was disorienting. They called me ma'am and waited for my instructions rather than giving me theirs. One of them, a man named Marco who looked like he could snap a tree in half with his hands, once asked if I preferred that they patrol farther from the house to give me more privacy. Why are you asking me? I wanted to know. Because you're the one who lives here, ma'am. Mr. Ferrara told us your comfort is the priority. One afternoon, my mother called. Enzo came to inform me. There's a woman on the line, ma'am. She says she's your mother. Do you wish to speak with her? The panic hit me like ice water. Can I not answer? Of course. What if she calls back? Then I will ask again if you wish to speak with her. If the answer is always no, then it will always be no. I cried again that night, but it was a different kind of crying. It was the crying of someone who was beginning to believe that the walls around her weren't a prison, they were a fortress. A week after the wedding, a man came to the house. He was one of the vendors from town, someone I had known my whole life. He was delivering wine, and when he saw me in the garden, his face transformed into something painfully familiar, that mix of pity and contempt I had seen my entire life. Well, well, he said, loud enough for the guards to hear. The drunk's daughter turned into the mobster's whore. Who would have thought? Before I could respond, Marco was there. Out, he said. One word. His voice wasn't raised. but it held a promise of violence so clear that the man paled. I said, out. And if you ever speak to Mrs. Ferrara that way again, it will be the last time you speak to anyone. The man left so fast he left wine crates scattered in the driveway. That evening at dinner, Dante spoke for the first time without me initiating the conversation. I heard what happened today. I tensed. I want you to know, he continued, cutting his meat with precise movements. That man will never work for anyone in this region again, not because I ordered it, but because no one will want to associate with someone who insulted my wife. You didn't have to do that. I didn't do it out of obligation. He looked up. I did it because you were right when you married me in that church. When you accepted my protection, that protection includes your dignity, your reputation, your right to exist without small men spitting their poison at you. What if I had wanted to handle it myself? A small, genuine smile crossed his face. The next time, I'll make sure to ask you first. My mother tried to come to the house 3 weeks later. I was in the library when I heard the commotion. Her voice, slurred and full of that familiar rage, cutting through the walls. She's my daughter. I have a right to see her. Let me through, you animal. I froze. The book fell from my hands. Enzo appeared in the doorway. Ma'am, there's a woman at the entrance who claims to be your mother. Do you wish to allow her in? My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure he could hear it. No. Very well. He left. The shouting continued for several minutes. I heard my mother threaten, plead, curse. I heard her voice break in a way that, once upon a time, would have made me run to her, would have made me do whatever was necessary to calm her anger, to stop her pain. But I wasn't that little girl anymore, and this wasn't her house. When silence finally came, I walked to the window. I watched my mother's car drive away, escorted by 2 vehicles that ensured she wouldn't try to return. Dante appeared at my side. I don't know when he had entered the library. Are you all right? I don't know. Do you want to talk about it? I don't know. He stayed there in silence, watching out the window with me. He didn't touch me. He didn't offer empty words of comfort. He simply was present. Thank you, I said finally. You don't have to thank me for keeping you safe from someone who should have protected you. The bitterness in his voice surprised me. There was something there, something personal that had nothing to do with me. Why are you doing this? I asked. Really, the truth. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. Because I know what it's like to have someone who should love you and only sees you as an extension of their own pain. He paused. And because when I had the power to run, I had no one to give me the keys. He left before I could ask more. But that night, for the first time, I began to see the man behind the monster everyone said he was. 2 months passed. 2 months of dinners that gradually filled with conversation. 2 months of nights in the library where he recommended books, and I began to do the same. 2 months of walks through the vineyards where the distance between us slowly began to shrink. But he never touched me. He never crossed the invisible line he had drawn on our wedding day. There were moments when our hands almost brushed, moments when his gaze lingered a second longer than necessary. But he always stopped, always pulled back. And I was beginning to wish he wouldn't. That realization terrified me. One night, after a particularly long dinner where we had talked about everything and nothing, I finally asked the question that had been burning inside me since our wedding day. Why me? He was pouring wine. His hands paused for a moment before continuing. What do you mean? You could have had anyone. Beautiful women, rich women, women from powerful families who would have strengthened your alliances. I forced myself to meet his eyes. Why did you choose the drunk's daughter from a town that means nothing? He set the wine bottle on the table. I knew about your mother, he said. I knew about the alcohol, the rumors, how the town treated you. He paused. I also knew other things. A chill ran through me. What things? I have eyes in many places. One of them saw something 2 years ago, a bruise on your neck that you were trying to hide with a scarf in the middle of July. Another saw how you would cross the street when your mother came out of the bar because you knew it was safer to avoid her than to face her when she had been drinking. My throat closed. I started paying attention then, he continued, gathering information, waiting. I knew your mother was looking for a way out of her debts. I knew that eventually she would use you as currency because that's what people like her do with the only valuable thing they have. So you waited. I waited. His eyes met mine. And when she came to me with the offer, I accepted. Not because I wanted you as an object, but because marriage was the only legal way to remove you from that house without her being able to claim you back. You could have told me. Would you have believed me? Would a frightened stranger have trusted the man the town calls a monster? I had no answer for that, because I knew I wouldn't have. I would have thought it was another trap, another form of control disguised as kindness. So you bought me, I said, to free me. I offered you a refuge. His voice softened. What you do with it is your decision. It always has been. And if I had chosen to leave on the first day, then you would have left, and I would have gone on with my life knowing that at least one person who deserved to escaped. Something in my chest broke. Or maybe it was repaired. I wasn't sure which. Why? I asked. And this time the question was different. Why do you care? Why do I matter? Dante was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of something he had kept hidden for a long time. I had a sister, he said, younger than me. Her name was Elena. The past tense hit me like a blow. Our mother died when she was 12. Our father, he was like your mother, except his poison didn't come in bottles. It came in words, in impossible expectations, in punishments for faults that didn't exist. Dante looked toward the window, toward the darkness of the garden. I was able to escape. I was 18 when I left. I promised myself I would come back for her when I had enough power to protect her from him. What happened? I was too late. His voice was flat, controlled, the kind of control that hides a pain too great to express. She was 19 when she died, the same age you were when I saw you in that church. 19. Since then, he continued, I have built all of this, the power, the wealth, the influence, and I've always wondered what it was for, if I couldn't use it to save the only person who really mattered to me. I rose from my chair, walked toward him, stopped just one step away. Power only matters if it protects someone weaker, I said, repeating his words from the wedding day. He looked at me. For the first time, I saw vulnerability in his eyes. Not the monster the town feared, not the ruthless businessman, just someone who had lost too much and found a strange, twisted way to try to repair it. I can't bring her back, he said. But when I saw you, when I knew what you were living through, I couldn't just do nothing, not again. I extended my hand. He looked at it as if it were something dangerous. I'm not her, I said. I'm not a ghost you can save to redeem yourself. I know. I'm a person with my own decisions, my own feelings. I know. And if I'm going to stay here, if I'm going to choose to be here, I need it to be for me. Not for her, not for your guilt. For me. His hand met mine, his fingers intertwined with mine with a gentleness that contrasted with everything I knew about him. Then, stay for you, he said. And if someday you decide to leave, do that for you too. That night, for the first time, I didn't sleep in my room. I stayed in the library with him. Our hands joined, watching the fire until dawn. There was nothing more than that. And it was enough. The town had an annual festival. Dante normally didn't attend. The people preferred him to stay away, and he preferred not to remind them of his presence more than necessary. It was a delicate balance he had maintained for years. But that year, 3 months after the wedding, I wanted to go. I wanted to prove something. To myself, maybe. To the town, definitely. I wanted to walk through the streets where I had grown up invisible and be seen, not as the drunk's daughter, not as the victim, as Dante Ferrara's wife. He didn't want me to go alone. It's not about controlling you, he said when he saw my expression. It's because I know those people. I know what they're capable of when they think, no, one is watching. Then come with me. Something crossed his face. Surprise, perhaps, or something more like hope. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The festival was in full swing when we arrived. Heads turned. Whispers started like a wave, spreading from the entrance of the plaza to the farthest corners of the market. Dante walked beside me, not in front of me, not behind me, beside me, like an equal. The first few minutes were almost pleasant. People kept their distance, But there was something satisfying in seeing them lower their eyes when mine met theirs, in seeing them step back when we approached. And then I saw her. My mother was by the central fountain, surrounded by a group of women I recognized as the worst gossips in town. She had a glass in her hand, of course she did, and her face was flushed with alcohol and rage. She saw me at the same moment I saw her. There she is. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. The festival noise diminished. There's my daughter, the one who abandoned me. Dante tensed beside me. We can leave, he murmured. No. My mother approached, stumbling slightly. The women around her followed like vultures anticipating carrion. Look at her, she said, loud enough for half the plaza to hear. Look at how she walks, like she's somebody, like she doesn't know that everyone here knows exactly what she is. Mother, don't call me that. She spat the words. You lost the right to call me that when you sold yourself, when you spread your legs for that. Careful. Dante's voice was low, but something in it made my mother instinctively step back. Careful what you say next. But my mother was too drunk, too consumed by her own bitterness to heed warnings. Or what? She laughed, an ugly, wet sound. You'll kill me, like you kill everyone who gets in your way. She turned to the crowd that now surrounded us. Look at this girl who sold herself to the devil. Do you think this is a marriage? It's a transaction. I sold her and he bought her. The silence was absolute. I felt the eyes on me, the judgment, the confirmation of everything they had always believed. He bought her, my mother continued, savoring every word. Like you buy cattle, like you buy a thing, and she let herself be bought because she's not worth more than that. Because she's just like her father, useless, coward, ready to run. Enough. Dante's voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. The power in it made everyone freeze. He took one step forward, just one, but it was enough to silence my mother. You are right about one thing, he said. There was a transaction. You came to me 4 months ago offering me your daughter in exchange for money to pay your debts. Alcohol debts, gambling debts, years of living beyond your means while neglecting the one person you should have protected. The murmurs began again. I accepted your offer, Dante continued. But not for the reasons you believe. I did not buy your daughter. He turned to the crowd. On our wedding day in front of witnesses, I gave her a legal document. That document guarantees her complete freedom. She can leave whenever she wants. She owes me nothing. She never has. My mother's face contorted. That's a lie? Dante pulled something from the inside pocket of his jacket. A copy of the document. Here it is, signed by me, notarized. Legal in every sense. Your daughter is not my prisoner, she never was. She is my wife because she chose to be. Because every day she wakes up in my house, she chooses to stay. And every day I wake up, I am grateful for that choice. He unfolded the document and held it high. This woman, he said, pointing at me, was never bought. She was never sold. She was rescued from someone who should have loved her and instead used her as currency. And if anyone here has something to say about that, they can say it directly to me. No one spoke. My mother was trembling, with rage, with humiliation, with something that might have been the belated recognition of what she had lost. You, she began. You, Dante interrupted, will not approach my wife again. You will not speak about her. You will not say her name. And if I hear that you have spread one more word of poison about her in this town or anywhere else, I will make sure that every person who has ever given you credit, who has ever sold you a bottle, who has ever rented you a roof, stops doing so. Am I clear? My mother opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time in my life, I saw her speechless. Dante turned to me, extended his hand. Shall we go? I took his hand. And we walked through the plaza, through the silent crowd, through the town that had watched me grow up and never truly seen me. Until now. That night, Dante didn't come to dinner. I found him in his study, looking out the window at the darkness of the garden. There was a bottle of whiskey on his desk, but the glass beside it was empty. He hadn't been drinking. I should apologize, he said when he sensed my presence. For what? For making decisions for you. For speaking on your behalf in front of all those people without asking if that was what you wanted. I walked toward him, stopped beside the window, close enough that our arms almost touched. You wanted to protect me. Wanting to protect someone doesn't justify taking away their voice. You didn't take away my voice. I looked at him. You gave it back to me. You gave me the chance to see my mother confronted with the truth of what she did. You gave me the chance to see the town finally understand that I'm not what they believed. Even so, Dante. It was the first time I used his first name. Something in him softened at hearing it. I need to tell you something. He waited. All my life, someone else has made decisions for me. My mother decided if I ate, if I slept, if I deserved affection or punishment. The town decided who I was before I could decide for myself. And when I married you, I expected more of the same. I expected the walls to simply change color, but they would still be walls. And now? I took a breath. Now I know they're not walls. They're shields, protection, and I know I can walk through them whenever I want. I turned my body to face him directly, but I don't want to. The hope in his eyes was almost painful to witness. I need you to be certain, he said, and there was a plea hidden in those words. I need you to understand that if you stay, I want it to be because you truly want to, not out of gratitude, not because you feel you owe me, not because you have nowhere else to go. I have somewhere to go. I smiled. The document guarantees it, remember? I could leave tomorrow. I could start over anywhere in the world. Then why stay? The question floated between us. And finally I had the answer. Because all my life, no one gave me the right to choose. And you gave it to me on the first day. And every day since then, you've respected that choice. I extended my hand and placed it on his chest, over his heart. I'm not staying because you saved me. I'm staying because for the first time, I have the freedom to leave. And I'm choosing to stay with you, not as your rescue, not as your redemption, as your equal. Dante closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was something wet in them. I don't know if I deserve that. Maybe not. Maybe neither of us deserves it. But that's the beautiful thing about choice, isn't it? It doesn't have to be deserved. It just has to be real. His hand found mine on his chest. It's real, he said. All of this, it's real for me. For me too. And then for the first time he leaned forward. And for the first time I didn't pull back. The kiss was soft, tentative, like two people who had forgotten how to trust, learning to do it again. When we separated, he rested, his forehead against mine. What do we do now? He asked. I smiled. Whatever we want. Together. The garden is full of light. I'm sitting on the terrace with a book I never finish reading because there's always something more interesting to watch. The vineyards stretch toward the horizon, green and gold under the afternoon sun. Somewhere in the house, I can hear Enzo arguing with the chef about tonight's menu. I hear footsteps behind me. Dante sits beside me. He has vine leaves in his hair and dirt on his hands. He's been working in the new section, the one we planted together last spring. You should see the grapes, he says. They're going to be perfect this year. You always say that. And I'm always right. I laugh. It's a sound that still surprises me sometimes. The ease of it, the freedom. My mother left town 6 months ago. I don't know where and I haven't asked. The last I heard, she was somewhere in the south, starting over. Maybe finding her own demons, maybe not. It's not my responsibility anymore. The town has changed too. Or maybe it's me who has changed, and I simply see things differently. There are people who still whisper, but there are others who smile when they see me. There are young girls who look at me like I'm someone to admire, and although I don't know if I deserve those looks, I try to be worthy of them. Dante takes my hand. His fingers intertwine with mine in that way that has become as familiar as my own breathing. What are you thinking about? He asks. About how all of this began. And about how no one ever told me this was how it was supposed to feel. How what was supposed to feel. I look at him, at the man the world calls a monster, and who has shown me more gentleness than anyone else in my life. At the man who gave me my freedom before I could decide what to do with it. At the man who waits every day for me to choose to stay, and every day seems genuinely surprised when I do. Love, I say. He smiles. It's a small smile, almost shy. completely different from the image the world has of him. And how does it feel? Like a choice, I say. Every day. A choice no one forces me to make, a choice that is only mine. And today, I lean toward him, rest my head on his shoulder, look out at the vineyards, at the sky beginning to turn orange and pink. Today I choose you, I say. Again, like yesterday, like tomorrow. His arm wraps around me, silence envelops us. And in that silence I find something I never thought I would have. Peace.